free under the flag of our land, Zambia. Praise to thee, O one strong and.
This was due to something beyond our control, but nevertheless, you are welcome. Let me acknowledge the president of acting president of the Patriotic Front, who is also the acting chair for the Tonse Alliance, who's flanked by our spokesperson, who's also the PEP president, Mr. Tembo. There is also President Tonse, who's joined us as flanking the president. There is President Nsoma, and as well as President Peter Chanda. Members of the Tonse Alliance, senior members of the Patriotic Front, MCCs, you are all welcome. I now call upon President Tembo, who's going to introduce the president so that he may brief you. Thank you.
A very good afternoon, members of the media. My sincerest condolences to you all as well. We are gathered this afternoon to shed light on a number of issues that have arisen ever since the untimely demise of our Tonse Alliance chairman, who was also the 60th Republican president. You want me to sit down?
Yes.
I prefer to stand. Who was also the 60th Republican president. It is a very solemn occasion, and it has been made even more. The funeral arrangements for our that we apologize for starting this briefing late. However, you need to bear with us. We have a funeral, and when you have a funeral, there are always a lot of things that arise which you do not plan for. Therefore, you need to bear with us. Another issue that made us to delay in commencing our press briefing, which was initially scheduled for 10 o'clock this morning, is the issue of the venue. The issue of the venue for the press briefing. We approached a number of private entities to host our press briefing, and some of them initially agreed. We even remitted a payment, only to call us on the last minute saying that they've decided not to proceed with our using their venue. Despite our protests, some of them decided to just refund our money and prevented us from holding the press briefing. So you can clearly see that there is a clear pattern of harassment in terms of our ability to relate with the Zambian people by forces and by individuals who do not want us to mourn our beloved Republican president in peace. However, countrymen and women, members of the media, we are here now. We are here and we are ready to proceed with the press briefing. And at this point, allow me to call upon Honorable Given Rubinda, the acting PF president, as well as acting Tonse Alliance chairman. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Members of the press, I would like to join the Director of Ceremonies and President Tembo in rendering to you our profuse apology for starting this press briefing so late. It is not in our habit to keep members of the press waiting for us. We normally like to wait for members of the press because we are calling you here because we know that it is only through you that we can communicate the messages that we have. But I'd like to thank you for being patient and I don't want to waste any more time. My colleagues, leaders of the various political parties that are part of the Tonse Alliance, thank you very much for coming to flank me this afternoon. As President Sean Tembo has already stated, the Alliance have stated that our position has been that we shall be guided by the family and that we will only give advice to the family when we are required to do so. And in trying to make the public understand our position, I'll go through the various pertinent issues that have been subject of debate in the media. To do that, I would like to first start with the latest developments regarding the funeral arrangements for the late former President, the 6th Republican President, His Excellency Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu. As advised by the family of the 6th Republican President through a statement issued on the 19th of June 2025, the mortal remains of Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu shall be buried in South Africa. For us in the Tonse Alliance, it is regrettable, although understandable, that the family of Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu had to arrive at the decision to bury the mortal remains of the President in South Africa. I wish to emphasize that the family of Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu had to arrive at the decision to bury the mortal remains of President Edgar Lungu in South Africa. As Tonse Alliance, we would have naturally preferred that the mortal remains of Edgar Chagwa Lungu be buried in Zambia. That's what we would have preferred, that his mortal remains be buried here in Zambia. Because this would have given all of us, his colleagues, all his supporters, as well as all Zambians, an opportunity to attend his funeral and his burial. From the date that his demise was announced, we in Tonse started preparing for a mammoth turnout of our members and his supporters, as well as the general public. For us in Tonse, we would have had this as an opportunity to show that Edgar Chagwa Lungu was truly loved by many and sundry. The fact that he's to be buried in South Africa means that we've lost that opportunity. Many of his dear colleagues, many of his supporters, many of the members of the various political parties that form the Tonse Alliance will unfortunately not witness the burial of their dear departed president. And we feel extremely sad by that. Nonetheless, like I said earlier, it is understandable that the UPND government, through the immigration, facilitate the smooth passage of those who intend to travel to South Africa for the burial. We pray that the Immigration Department of Government will facilitate smooth movement of our people who are desirous of going to attend the burial of President Edgar Chagwa Lungu in South Africa. The Tonse Alliance is making arrangements to facilitate for as many Zambians that loved and cherished Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu to travel for the funeral in South Africa. Family and the government. Number one, our understanding as Tonse of the current impasse between ECL family and government is that prior to his untimely demise on 10th June 2025, the 6th Republican president left strict instructions on how his funeral arrangements must be handled. That is our understanding. And this understanding is from the family. Secondly, an agreement was entered into by the two parties, the Edgar Chagwa Lungu family on one hand, and the government of the Republic of Zambia on the other hand. And that agreement accepted the demands of the family that was entered into between the state and the family of Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu. It is our further understanding that the GRZ produced a funeral program in the family and government. Arising from this, there are two questions that must be answered honestly by all of us. The first question is, was it actually bent backwards? What is our response to this? First, we'll address our response to the national address that was made by President Hakainde Hichilema. The address in national money only. President Hakainde's address failed to address the allegations made by the East, but it didn't. As a matter of fact, even the prior statements issued by the government spokesperson, Honorable Cornelius Mwetwa, and Secretary to Cabinet, Mr. Patrick Kangwa, did not dispute the assertion made by the ECL family. The period of mourning is a statutory provision of 7 days, and therefore President Hakainde did not cancel the period of national mourning because the 7 days had elapsed. Is a mockery, because it is the same president who had extended the 7 days by another 9 days. And therefore to say that the statutory period is only 7 days, and that because the 7 days had expired, therefore there was no cancellation, is not a statement of truth. The truth of the matter. But President Hakainde decided to terminate the period of national mourning on Thursday. The fourth matter which has been subject of debate is our position as politicians, our position as Tonse regarding the impasse between the ECL family and the government of the Republic of Zambia. Our considered position is that the failure by 3 senior government officials, being Honorable Cornelius Mwetwa, Mr. Patrick Kangwa, and President Hakainde Hichilema, to dispute the assertion made by ECL's family that government had abrogated and violated the agreement that had been previously reached, literally refused to have him buried in Zambia. Had they wanted to bury him in Zambia, they could have stuck to the agreement that was jointly announced, that Secretary to Cabinet Patrick Kangwa, when he went to negotiate with the family, was not representing government. But we believe that as Secretary to Cabinet, he is the senior-most civil servant and cannot do anything without the approval of the head of state. This is the reason why we regret that the family found themselves in the unfortunate position where they had to decide to bury our dear departed president in exile. My dear fellow countrymen and women, it is worth noting that the agreement that had been reached between ECL family and government on 14th June 2025 was made possible through the mediation efforts of various key stakeholders, including regional leaders, church leaders, traditional leaders, and other notable statesmen. Therefore, it was totally disingenuous for the Zambian government to unilaterally abrogate and violate such an agreement. The question which the Zambian people should ask the government, why in the first place did his government enter into an agreement with the ECL family if they had no intention of honoring it? Why? Secondly, the second question, the Tonse Alliance would like to guide its members, as well as members of the general public that wish to attend the funeral service of the late 6th Republican President in South Africa, with the following guidelines. 1. The Tonse Alliance, in collaboration with well-wishers, is making arrangements to facilitate the movement of as many Zambians that loved and cherished ECL as possible to travel to South Africa for his burial, both by air and by road. Number 2, these arrangements, together with a firm date for the burial of the late President, Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, will be communicated to all of us in due course. Again, it is that government will not interfere, but that will assist, that it will facilitate for the smooth arrangements for citizens to travel to go and witness the burial of their dear departed president. I want to emphasize that we in the Tonse Alliance leadership regret that not all our members will witness the burial of their dear departed president. That was our hope. All those members that we encouraged from across the country to prepare themselves for the send-off of Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, we regret that that won't happen because not all of you will be able to travel to South Africa. We hoped that the government would have facilitated for the arrival and subsequent burial of the mortal remains of President Edgar Chagwa Lungu in accordance with the agreement that they had entered into. Alas, that shall not be. We would like to appeal to all citizens to mourn Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu wherever they are and mourn him peacefully. It is during times like this, when emotions are running high, that we appeal to all of us to be resilient, to maintain peace for oneself and peace for everybody around you. This is a period when all of us are called upon to show love to one another in the manner that Edgar Chagwa Lungu did. And also to just remind all of us that Edgar Chagwalungu died in pursuit of peace, harmony, and love. I thank you most sincerely, members of the press, for your kind attention. And I thank you, my dear colleagues, for accompanying me in addressing the nation through the press. We will take questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable and Acting Tonse Chairman, for that address. In terms of how we are going to proceed with the questions, we are going to take one question at a time, and then we are going to answer that question, and then we are going to move on to the next question. So, do we have the first question? Yes, madam, you can tell us your full name and the media house that you are representing.
My name is Anna.
You may stand up, please.
My name is Anna from Crown TV. My question is, I believe Edgar Lungu was the chairperson of Tonse Alliance, and of course what has come about has disappointed the alliance as admitted by the acting chairperson. Have you made any attempts to speak to the family with regards to if they can reconsider their decision to bury the president in South Africa, or have you made any attempts to engage governments to reconsider the allegations that you're saying they did not address their breach of the agreement with the family? Has there been any such attempts to ensure that things are resolved amicably? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very important question. You said you are who, Anne? Anna. Madam Wheeler, that's a very important question. Remember what we have been saying all the time, that we will only avail ourselves in the event that we are invited, either by the family or by the government. And as things stand, we have not been invited, and we did not want and do not wish to interfere, because this is a matter between the family and the government. Had the government engaged the Tonse Alliance in the first place, then would have been party to it. But the Tonse Alliance, PF, and any of these political parties were not engaged at all. So if we're to just present ourselves, we'll be interfering. The family did not approach us, nor did the government. I hope I've answered your question, madam. We are hurt, that's for sure. We are hurt by the loss. But after the loss, President Edgar Chagwalungu remains property of the family, and the family will decide how they'll put him to rest. And we told them we'll stand by their decision, we'll be guided by them. And that's where we are. My colleague would like to add to that.
Maybe in addition to the areas of mission, for us as Tonse Alliance to intervene, to engage the family, to try and convince the family to decide otherwise, or to further dilute their requests to government, the starting point would be that we feel that the family's judgment or position regarding to this matter is unreasonable. You understand? That would be the starting point. But given the background to this matter, our assessment is that the position taken by the family is a very reasonable position. Therefore, there would be no need whatsoever to engage the family and convince them to decide otherwise. If it was my relation who had died, and that person left a very clear and express dying wish that I don't want that man there to come to my funeral. That man with the bald head at the corner, I don't want him to come to the funeral. And that man wants to insist to come to the funeral of the person who had died. Then obviously I'll ensure that I enforce the dying wishes of my relative. As simple as that. That is not an unreasonable act whatsoever. Because my relative who has died is not able to enforce their dying wish. So they rely on who? The family to enforce that dying wish. As simple and straightforward as all that. The second aspect of your question, Madam, is that whether we have taken the initiative to engage government with the hope of making government resign their position to first of all cancel the national mourning, and secondly to create conditions that make it impossible for the repatriation and burial into Zambia of the late former 60th Republican president. Have we made any initiative? The background to that is, for us to make any initiative, we need to be able to assess that there is a possibility and there is appetite on the part of government to ensure that ECL is repatriated back to Zambia and buried in Zambia. If there is that sincere wish on the part of government, then we can step in and engage government and try to convince them to facilitate the repatriation and burial to Zambia of ECL. But in our assessment, from the word go, based on the various issues that the acting Tonse chairman has elaborated throughout this press briefing, we can clearly see that there is no sincere wish on the part of government to ensure that the mortal remains of Dr. Edgar Chagwalungu are repatriated back into Zambia and buried back into Zambia. Starting from the period it took for President Hakainde Hichilema to address the nation and declare a period of mourning, all the way to the abrogation of the initial agreement reached between government and the ECL family, which agreement the ECL family told the nation that the government had abrogated on item 1, 2, 3. We've had 3 government officials address the nation ever since that agreement was abrogated. The first one was Honorable Cornelius Mwetwa in Choma, when he was attending another burial there. He addressed the nation. And in his address, he did not dispute the violation of the agreement as tabulated by the ECL family. He did not. The second person was the Secretary to Cabinet through a written statement to the nation in response to the breakdown of the agreement. Again, the Secretary to Cabinet did not dispute the narration of events and the abrogation and violation of the agreement. He did not. And the third person was President Hakainde Hichilema himself through an address that he made on the 19th of June. And again, in that address to the nation, President Hakainde Hichilema did not have violated the initial agreement. He did not. So when you have a government that enters into an agreement and then proceeds to violate that agreement, there is no further room for engagement with such a government in the hope of resolving the matter, because clearly they do not have.
The way we know the CV of this government, does it show that it's a government that can stick to rules and agreements? The answer is no. So if we dared to do that, we will be actually risking our CV ourselves, because as Tonse, we are for breaking rules, and among others, then it was going to jeopardize our CV as Tonse. Thank you very much.
We'll start with yourself. Your full name, the media house you're coming from, and your question, please.
Alfonso Kasongo is my name. I represent 5FM Radio. Mr. President, my condolences to you and your alliance. with your politics aside, a life has been lost.
How do you switch this thing? Sorry about that.
You may proceed.
Yes, a life has been lost for a significant figure of this nation. I'm just simple questioning, Mr. Acting President, with all sincerity, self-introspection. Does the impasse surrounding the former head of state please answer me?